I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. After the vote to expel MAGA Republican George Santos from the House of Representatives failed, George Santos sent a Dear Colleague letter to all of the members of Congress who voted not to expel him, and thanked all of them. He sent it to all the members of Congress, even the ones who voted to expel him. But he sent it out to everybody, thanking them. And Democratic Congressmember Jamie Raskin had an incredible response I want to share with you. And in addition to being a member of Congress, a renowned constitutional scholar, we also now know that Jamie Raskin is a grammarian, and this is one of the funniest, most scathing, but it's also a very important letter that's sent by Democratic Congressmember Jamie Raskin. Here, pull up the letter. So this was a Dear Colleague letter that George Santos sent to all members of Congress, and this is a markup by Jamie Raskin to George Santos, correcting his spelling and grammar and saying, I wish you would have proofread this. And so let me just read you the letter quickly, then let's go through Jamie Raskin's edits to it, and then the note from Jamie Raskin to George Santos. And then I want to show you a few other very important video clips related to this. Dear colleague, this is from George Santos. Dear colleague, I'm writing to express my gratitude to you for standing up for the principles, spelled wrong, of due process and the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. Never in the history of this body has an expulsion been carried out before a member has stood before a jury of their peers and been convicted of alleged crimes they have been accused. Of which they've been accused. I want to sincerely emphasize that I know that your vote was not done for me, but for the sanctity of this institution and to possibly of setting a very dangerous precedent. For that, I thank you. Sincerely, George Santos, representative of New York's 3rd Congressional District. So shameful that he holds that position and that he wasn't expelled and that the MAGA Republican Party is that way now. Let's take a look at Jamie Raskin's edits and markup of this. Correcting the spelling of George Santos's word choice of principles, how you spell it correctly. Adding the words of which after alleged crimes, of which they have been accused of, Jamie Raskin points out. Then there's the sentence that doesn't make a lot of sense by George Santos, where Santos goes, but for the sanctity of this institution and the possibility of setting a very dangerous precedent, Jamie Raskin says, and to avoid setting a very dangerous precedent, if you were trying to actually spell this correctly. And then Jamie Raskin says, P.S., it's not shameful to resign. And then he dates it November 3rd, 2023, and puts a little letter back to George Santos on the bottom of the Dear Colleague letter. And Jamie Raskin writes, Dear Congressman Santos, I appreciate your note and only wish someone had proofread it first. Meantime, you should apologize to the people of New York for all of your lies and deceit. I know you must have thought you could get away with it all in the party of Donald Trump, but the truth is resilient. Signed, Jamie Raskin. And that's how Jamie Raskin proofread it for him, marked it up, wrote a note, and sent it back to George Santos. And Jamie Raskin, by the way, is so right there, and also saying you probably thought in the party of Trump you can get away with it. And here's the thing too, folks. When we talk about MAGA, as I always say, MAGA equals fascism plus idiocracy. Unfortunately, the idiocracy thus far has outweighed the fascism, and it's just a lack of competence. And so it's the lack of just people of character and people just who can just write a very simple letter. Like in this 3-paragraph letter, it's riddled with typos and run-on sentences and misspelled words and missing words. And again, who would you just rather have be in Congress? A constitutional scholar, someone who graduates from the top law school, who studies, who knows his things, or someone like George Santos who lies about everything. By the way, here when MAGA Mike Johnson the MAGA Republican Speaker of the House, who we now learn, based on some great reporting by the Daily Beast and others, doesn't have a bank account, doesn't have a checking account or a savings account. Yeah, these MAGA Republicans who added $8 trillion of debt are led by someone who doesn't have a checking or savings account. Also, they put Jim Jordan to head the Judiciary Committee, where Jim Jordan isn't a licensed lawyer. Goes to show you a lot. Here is George Santos and Lauren Boebert high-fiving after Republicans elected MAGA Mike Johnson, who doesn't have a checking or savings account, as their Speaker of the House. Play this clip.
Johnson.
And here is George Santos in an interview with CNN saying that nobody elected me because of my background and qualifications. Play the clip.
Voters thought they were electing one person.
Nobody elected me. Nobody elected me because I played volleyball or not. Nobody elected me because I graduated college or not. People elected me because I said I'd come here to fight the swamp. I'd come here to lower inflation, create more jobs, make life more affordable, and the commitment to America. That's why people voted for anybody. To say that they voted based on anybody's biography, I can beg you this. Nobody knew my biography. Nobody opened my biography who voted for me in the campaign.
And here's George Santos, same interview with CNN, saying he's absolutely going to run again for office in New York. Play this clip.
Expel you, and then they put someone else in the seat. You're going to run in 2024.
Absolutely.
Can you win a primary, given all these things that are lined up against you?
Yes.
And the general election. This is a Biden-leaning district, and you have all these issues against you.
Could I have won the general election last time? Nobody said I could, but I still
It was
tried.
a different situation.
No, I understand, but elections are tricky. There's no predetermined outcome.
And here is Democratic Congress member Dan Goldman. Again, let's just talk about character qualifications. I'm going to show the videos back to back right now. You ready for this? Dan Goldman, former top federal prosecutor out of the Southern District of New York, was responsible for prosecuting some of the most high-profile cases in New York when he was a prosecutor in the Southern District of New York. Here is George Santos, because George Santos is the one controlling the time for who gets to speak. It passes it because it was Dan Goldman's time to speak. And then Dan Goldman basically says to the Republicans in New York and others, this George Santos needs to go, and nothing has changed with what we've learned about him when we tried to expel him months ago. Play this clip.
Mr. Chair, I yield 5 minutes to my colleague from New York, Mr. Goldman.
Very much, Mr. Santos. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in support of this resolution to expel George Santos from Congress, as I did in May when I co-sponsored a similar expulsion resolution that the sponsors of today's resolution, my Republican colleagues from New York, did not support. I agree with everything that my Republican colleagues have said here today. But everything they have said here today was also true in May when they voted to protect George Santos. Has there been anything that has changed? Nothing about the numerous lies that Mr. Santos admitted himself to making in order to deceive his voters into electing him. Nothing about his status as an indicted criminal defendant. Yes, there has been a superseding indictment with more allegations of criminal conduct, but he is still presumed innocent until proven guilty, as my New York friends relied upon in May when they voted to protect George Santos from expulsion.
So that's Dan Goldman. And now here is George Santos speaking. Play this clip.
I stand today to continue to prove my innocence of these allegations and charges leveled against me. I'd like to say I understand the point of view of my colleagues, but I don't. One can't say that they are pro-Constitution and at the same time act as judge, jury, and executioner. Where is the consistency, Mr. Speaker? The actions taken within this body are delicate, and consistency is essential. And now is not the time to set dangerous precedent. Consider this. The last time a member of Congress was expelled was in 2002, following a criminal conviction. In fact, both expulsions in the last 2 centuries took place after the defendants had been convicted. To my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, I'd like to remind you that many of you are supporting another member of Congress who is under investigation and is the second time he is indicted. And even one of you, and even one who recently pleaded guilty to a crime. Rather than calling for their resignation, here we are. I must warn my colleagues that voting for expulsion at this point would circumvent the judicial system's right to due process that I'm entitled to, and desanctify the long-held premise that one is presumed innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah, and after all of that, George Santos was permitted to remain in Congress. This is who the MAGA Republicans are, folks, and I'm reminded by this clip. Remember when Kevin McCarthy said that he would rather have George Santos as the president of the United States over President Joe Biden? This is from Kevin McCarthy. Play this clip.
Mr. Speaker, first a very quick question. Who has more power, Joe Biden or George Santos?
Well, right now I think it is the president, Joe Biden, unfortunately.
So how much?
Yeah, and it's just shameful what this Republican Party has become, full MAGA. I want to remind everybody that there's a big election in Virginia in November. Make sure the last day to early vote was on Saturday, but voting is November 7th. Make sure you're getting involved in Virginia. You can go to the DNC website to help them out there and look up what's going on in Virginia. You can look up on Simon Rosenberg's Substack how to get involved in Virginia. Let people know in Virginia. I mean, even though you have Glenn Youngkin there, all Republican is MAGA, and Glenn Youngkin is just a variation of MAGA in a vest. I mean, that's basically who Glenn Youngkin is. And we just need competent people in government right now, not people who are taking away your rights and your freedoms, and people who are embracing of people like George Santos. And Glenn Youngkin, the MAGA Republican, he's part of that. We just need competent people. So please get involved in Virginia if you can. We've got a few more days there. So thank you for doing that. Hit subscribe. We are on our way to 2 million subscribers here. And also check us out at patreon.com/MeidasTouch. Have a great day.
Hey, Meidas Mighty. Love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.